Now is counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. Good morning, Kellyanne.
Good morning, John.
I want to ask you, this is clearly a victory for the president, a big victory for the president. But as you yourself said, this was could be seen as an apocalyptic fight, this confirmation battle. How concerned are you that given all that went down and the way this went down, that Brett Kavanaugh will be seen as a tainted justice by roughly half of the country?
Justice Kavanaugh should not be seen as tainted. He should be seen as somebody who went through 7 FBI investigations, including just in this last week, another one that was completed this past July, had answered 1,200 written questions, had produced about 1 million pages of documents, submitted himself to about 33 or 35 hours of sworn testimony to the Senate, including denying the allegations that were put before him. And they should look at his entire record the way Senator Susan Collins did. Her speech and her vote were remarkable, but don't forget what she said in that stem winder of a speech before she cast her affirmative vote. She said she had been briefed by 19 attorneys, that she had read his opinions. She quoted from those opinions. She said she's very concerned that we're giving up on basic principles that make America so wonderful, including fairness and due process and the presumption of innocence. The Supreme Court, thank God, is a sacrosanct institution that can withstand much, and it will withstand the fact that there were a lot of political machinations. You have people preening for the cameras already out there in Iowa running for president in 2020 on the heels of this vote, and who were raising money for their presidential campaigns during a Senate confirmation hearing for the Supreme Court. So I think there should be a lot of soul searching, but let's not forget who should be doing that. You're about to have a Democratic senator from the Senate Judiciary Committee, Mazie Hirono of Hawaii, on your show. She told you and the men of America to just shut up several weeks ago. This has been a very low point for many people whose job it was to advise and consent the president on judicial nominations. They wanted America to look up and see Brett Kavanaugh as a gang rapist, and a lot of women, including me in America, looked up and saw a man who was the political character assassination, and also we looked up and saw in him possibly our husbands, our sons, our cousins, our coworkers, our brothers. And this was unfair. Had they shown Brett Kavanaugh the grace and dignity that his 10-year-old daughter showed Dr. Ford, that we all showed her in her testimony in the FBI supplemental investigation. Okay. And I think there should be some soul searching, but it's not the Supreme Court.
So, Kellyanne, you heard what Elena Kagan said about the court's legitimacy depending on it being seen as apart from the politics that we see in the other two branches. I assume, based on your comments, you agree with that. There are, regardless of anything you just said, there are clearly questions in the minds of a great many people in this country, again, roughly half the country, about Justice Kavanaugh's objectivity. How would you advise him to overcome those questions that so many people in this country have about whether or not he can truly be an objective justice?
You've already tried this for weeks now, respectfully.
Tried what? I'm just asking you how he's going to overcome doubts that half the country has.
We've had this
I'm not trying anything. I'm just asking you a question.
No, excuse me. We've had this conversation for 3 weeks, including under sworn testimony. There's been no Supreme Court justice in the history of this country, John, that's been more picked apart, with the possible exception of Clarence Thomas, who's in his 27th year on the bench. And we've had this conversation for 3 weeks. I think what Justice Kavanaugh should do is what he's done for 12 years on the second highest court in the land, having authored over 300 judicial opinions. He should go to work. He should do his job. He should look at the document. He should listen to the cases in front of him. He should read the briefs, and then he should apply the law, not make it up as he goes along. That's why President Trump nominated Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh in the first place, and 26 other U.S. Circuit Court judges that have been confirmed, because this country is sick and tired of people who make up the laws they go along to fit political agendas or to fit personal predispositions. He should do that, but I'm telling you, you're talking about the country and polling. Look at the Harvard-Harris poll that came out this week. 2 data points I'll quickly review. One, 75% of Americans, according to the Harvard-Harris poll, say that Senator Feinstein should not have sat on that letter for 6 weeks. She should have revealed it immediately. In a separate question, 69% in the Harvard-Harris poll, said that they thought the whole process was a, quote, national disgrace. And you have to put all of those data points together and recognize that there was profiles in cowardice by many people, they were not trying to get to the, let's stop pretending that there's moral authority by some, including many in your industry. I didn't say you, but many in your industry have lost their moral authority to pretend that they were looking for the truth, that they were on some kind of fact-finding mission. When they're not even covering his testimony that he has denied under oath that this has happened. And they want every woman to be a victim, every woman to lock arms with every other woman, every man is a perpetrator. We can't live in a country where democracy and the First Amendment and due process and fairness and the presumption of innocence thrive and have that as the backdrop by United States senators.
But let me ask you, Kavanaugh, after the hearing was over, he wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and he said, let me read a section of this. I was very emotional last Thursday, more so than I have ever been. I might have been too emotional at times. I know that my tone was sharp. I said a few things I should not have said. We know he apologized for the way he spoke to Senator Klobuchar, but what are the other, what are the rest of those few things? What does he regret saying in that second round of confirmation hearing?
I think Senator Collins answered that question best, and I'll echo it, where she said she can understand, as can I, as can many people, including women across this country, millions of them, John, that when you are being unjustly attacked, when people are sending death threats and vile emails to your own wife, to your 13 and 10-year-old daughters, when they're trying to destroy the reputation and the good.
But what does he regret that he said? What are the few things that he says he should not have said?
Well, he apologized to Senator Klobuchar for getting a little bit hot, but I think we all can appreciate that. I don't think that what Judge Kavanaugh said under oath in that testimony for 35 hours, all told, comes anywhere near the hysteria and the hashtags and the spitting and the chasing people out of restaurants and down Senate halls. Nothing that he said or did comes even close to approximating that type of conduct. And America is watching. I'm glad the cameras were on. He said he apologizes. He apologized to the senator. But remember, he's under oath, as he's been for 28 years as a public servant, 7 FBI investigations. So let's move beyond the hearings.
Let's move on beyond the hearings to what's going to happen. I want to play something that candidate Donald Trump said during the campaign.
Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court.
So did the president keep his promise? He now has 2 justices on the court. Will Roe v. Wade be overturned? Is that the expectation?
There are many people in this country who are thrilled that it's President Trump and not the person who lost the election last time, putting these justices on the United States Supreme Court so we can get back to the Constitution and its 4 corners. Having said that, and Senator Collins again echoed this in her speech, Justice Kavanaugh, I love that, said during his testimony that he believes Roe versus Wade is settled law. I would refer you back to October 19th, 2016, when then-candidate Trump in the final debate in Las Vegas turned to Hillary Clinton and did something that pro-life candidates had not done for decades and should have. He turned to her and said, excuse me, you're the extremist on abortion. You would rip the baby out of its mother's womb before the last hour before its birth. That was Donald Trump. A lot of the country reflects as he said, ooh, and then they started to look at it and say, wait a second. To be pro-choice in 2018 means that you're for sex selection abortion, that you're for late-term abortion, taxpayer-funded abortion, abortion after you...
But can we come back to my question? My question is, do you expect...
Oh, no, that is the issue here.
But do you expect Roe v. Wade will be overturned? Is that the president promised that he was going to appoint justices that would get Roe v. Wade overturned? Is that the expectation now? Has he fulfilled his promise? Are we now going to see, does the president now expect that we are going to see Roe v. Wade overturned?
Both Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh, in their respective Supreme Court hearings, nomination hearings, excuse me, said that Roe is settled law. I'm making the point to you.
But the president promised to appoint justice, so that was a broken promise?
No, it's not a broken promise. He's appointing people, he's nominating people, 26 to the U.S. Circuit Courts and 2 to the United States Supreme Court, who are going to apply the law. Most Americans don't actually know what Roe provides and does not provide because we've surveyed this in the past. They think that there are limits to having abortions. That is not what Roe did. Roe talked about a word that we've never heard since, penumbra, and they talked about trimesters, but they never really, but we're talking about trimesters now. People are going to look at state law and the circuit law, and they're now going to look at issues like late-term abortion. They're going to look at sex selection abortion. They're certainly going to look at abortion after nonpartisan scientists and doctors say a fetus can feel pain. This whole matter on the left of abortion anytime, anyone, anywhere, on demand, with absolutely no common sense applied to it whatsoever. The fact that Planned Parenthood gets $500 million a year in taxpayer funding and then turns around and uses it to support Democrats is not what most Americans think of when they think of Planned Parenthood.
Kellyanne, we just
That's
heard
up to the United States Supreme Court. We'll see what cases. But I know the mainstream media wants to boil the Supreme Court down to only abortion or guns. This week, they're going to deal with asbestos claims. They'll probably deal with the Commerce Clause in this term.
Let me ask you about some news that just came in.
Constitution's a big document.
Senator Collins has just said that the president was not respectful of Christine Blasey Ford during this process. Your reaction?
Well, Senator Collins was referring, I believe, also to a particular comment from a rally last week that really showed a lot of rank and file people who care about the Supreme Court and care about people being unjustly accused, that he was showing that he would stand by them.
So was the president being disrespectful? Because the president blatantly misrepresented, the president blatantly in that rally misrepresented what
John, here's where you're going to respectfully. Here's where you're always going to be talking about last week, and we're moving forward, including to the.
Well, I'm asking you about right now. Senator Collins said the president was disrespectful, and I'm asking for you to respond to that. Was the president disrespectful? To Christine Blasey Ford?
I don't know what. Excuse me. The White House and the entire process, the Senate Judiciary Committee, the president, his counselor, all of us were very respectful to Dr. Ford in saying, let her be heard, don't ignore her, don't insult her. And we did hear her. She got to testify 11 days after Justice Kavanaugh was willing to testify, 11 days after her identity was first revealed. And let's review, why was her identity revealed? Who really disrespected this woman and made her a household name and a face? That would be the Democrats. That would be Senator Dianne Feinstein, who sat on that letter from her for 6 weeks, and then some Democratic staffer somewhere. And let's get to the bottom of that. Let's not let that go. I hope they will investigate who leaked Dr. Ford's identity. She requested anonymity. So she didn't want to be known. Excuse me, and then they recommended these Democratic lawyers for her who maybe didn't even tell her that she could testify privately in California. She didn't have to come to Washington.
Okay, Kellyanne, we're just about out of time. I want to get one question more about the vote, the actual vote. Lisa Murkowski obviously voted no. We heard from the president in the Washington Post say, quote, I think she will never recover from this. I think the people of Alaska will never forgive her for what she did. So you're the political expert over there. Do you agree with that? Is Lisa Murkowski's fate sealed? Did she make a fatal political mistake with that vote?
Alaska is a state that the president won by 15 points last time around. It is certainly a state that keeps elevating Republicans to statewide office. And I think the president's entire point is you're stuck between the will of your own people in this case, and also I think some of the other considerations that really didn't grip people like Senator Collins or Senator Flake or Senator Manchin. Everything that the swing voters wanted was done. There was a supplemental FBI investigation that lasted a week. I think that people were high-fiving themselves on the left, and it actually helped Justice Kavanaugh to have that supplemental investigation because there's still no corroboration for these allegations. The people that Dr. Ford mentioned by name were then interviewed by the FBI and could not corroborate. They couldn't corroborate her allegations. Senator Murkowski is up again in 2022. I think what a disgrace is that people are already raising millions of dollars to go against Senator Collins. Instead of raising money and hashtagging themselves on Twitter, go and read her whole speech. It is one for the ages. She did what senators are supposed to do, advise and consent. Look at all the facts and the evidence.
Thank you.
And make a decision based on that. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Kellyanne.
And congratulations to Justice Kavanaugh and President Trump. Thank you.